Pat, welcome. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I hear you had technical challenges. Welcome. I'm happy you were able to resolve them.
Yeah.
Right. Well, really, the name is, I believe, known to everyone, even though, well, maybe we don't know as much because he's a behind the camera person. But Mr. Pat Nebo, a production designer and art director, has spent close to 30 years in the Nigerian film industry. And according to one author, directors, writers, and cinematographers may get most of the glory, but production designers are integral contributors on a film shoot. Tasked with creating the look of a film, the production designer is an artistic jack of all trades and a confident leader who manages the entire art department. I believe that the work of Pat Nebo speaks very much to this. He began his career in this field in 1993 with his role in Tioluwa Nile. Since then, he has distinguished himself in films like October 1, Film Swap, The CEO, The Figurine, Agogo Ewo, Aruba, Lionheart, 76, Half of a Yellow Sun, Citation, and The Milkmaid. For those who are familiar with all of these films, well, these are films really which portrayed a lot of visual quality. As the ones responsible for visual concept and design style of films, the production designers are behind the camera workers. However, Pat Nebo has on 2 occasions broken that mold by appearing before the camera when he exhibited his acting skills by playing minor roles in The Figurine and 76. In recognition of his work, he has won the award for achievement in production design as Africa's Best Art Director at the 2012 African Movie Academy Awards for his work in Swap. And in the 2017 Africa Magic Viewers Choice Awards, he won the award of Best Art Director for his work in 76. So we are highly honored to have you with us today, Pat, if you permit me. And let me welcome you anew. Let me also welcome anew our guests, our participants. And just to say that, well, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box and we'll take them as we go along. For those who are joining us for perhaps the first time, this is an activity of the Nollywood Studies Center of the School of Media and Communications of Pan Atlantic University. So once more, welcome to everybody. Well, let's set the ball rolling. Let me throw my first question to you, Pat, by asking you, how did you get first into filmmaking? And then how did you now focus on this particular aspect of filmmaking?
Oh, okay. Good morning, everybody. And sorry for the little bit of rejigging and so on internet's fault. My name is Pat Nebo. Let me introduce myself. I remove my cap so you can recognize me. All right. My name is Pat Nebo, as I said, and well, I studied at Accademia Belle Arte di Roma. That's in Italy. And I was a painter and a sculptor. Then when I got back to Nigeria, I was to be posted to Yaba Tech Collection. Somehow they said I should go to National Museum. And when I got to National Museum, the man I met there was Professor Ekboyo, who wrote a compilation of 2,000 years of Nigerian arts, which I used for my master's, what they call it, thesis. The man took one look at me and said, Pat, this is not the place for you. Hit up to NTA. I went to NTA, and that was it. So from NTA, I got into film. I was actually the Nigerian art director eventually on, what's the name? Mr. Johnson. That's one of the first major films that came, Mr. Johnson. P.S. Brosnan, that appeared in 007 or something like that. And a host of others, including Mena, Desesh, and all whatnot. They were in Mr. Johnson. It was a major film. I was also part of Soweto film. They couldn't shoot Soweto in South Africa because of the apartheid that time. So they had to come to Nigeria. I was in the art department. So the journey started from there. And then I had my series from Tioluwa Nile when Tunde Kelani whom I regard as one of the biggest revolutionaries, because if we're enjoying what do they call that thing, DSTV, Hausa, Igbo, and so on, and Yoruba, it is thanks to effort of people like Tunde Kelan who believed in using language as a revolution. We started with what then nobody had known in Yoruba from Tiolu and Ile. Simple narrative, beautiful stories, as opposed to what was obtained then. But listen, all these things comes as a result of big research. Having worked with big names like Hubert Ogunde, you must not forget those people. Ogunde was the proper pioneer. Then we started with other films, and we have come to where we are today. So my adventure into film is, first and foremost, if you want to do what Pat Nebo does, or you want to understand me, you have to read. You have to research. You have to be a citizen of your country. You have to know, how did it happen? When I was part of half of the Yellow Sun, the first question was, they came from the UK. I lived through the Biafran War. They had their own idea about making films for international communities and all whatnot. But we had the idea of what the indigenous feel of such films were like. With half of the Yellow Sun and B. Bamdele, a Nigerian director, I was able to bring to the table. It's all pure research. Lions of 76, which chronicled the and who had the meeting and who didn't hold the meeting. We went behind. Going behind means looking at who making from the point of view of the Army Officers' Wives Association. Because you got to be an Army Officer's wife to really understand that soldiers do cry. Soldiers are human beings, flesh. But seen from where? From the point of view of the Army Officer's wife. So these are things that happen. What am I trying to tell you? If you want to be a good production designer, you have to be a good student of literature. You have to understand socially, politically, and otherwise your country. You have to read. I know about nanophysics. I know about quantum physics. I know about astrophysicists. You got to read through all these things before you can say you are coming to do this job as a production designer. It's not about running around and doing art directing and so on. Look, you must understand it. You must have an understanding of what it means when fellas say 49 sitting, 20 sitting and 49 standing, suffering and smiling. You must understand the poetic element in songs of people like Fela, in songs of people like Rex Lawson, Cross No Gutter. What were they trying to chronicle? The dynamics of life, of the civil servants of then, and the clash of culture from village to town. Maybe Sawan, le, Ashawo. I don't understand. You people have to listen to those things, because let me tell you one thing. The most important thing in this industry is cinema. The first idea I had about America, even before touching there, is through the films. So you can imagine, if we have harnessed the power of cinema and films and our culture, if the government has harnessed it, this country won't be where we are. Any policy you want to transmit to the people, it has to go through film, because film gets to everybody. It doesn't matter the quality of film. Even those ones that they do cherewere films of 1.5 pence and stuff like that. You can drive policies, you can drive ideologies and so on. Check out what happened with Mao Zedong. the father of Kim Jong-un in Korea, Hitler. I'm sorry to say it, but all these people relied on the power of media. So what I'm trying to tell people is this, that with proper research, we can go places. Thank you. Are you there?
Yes, yes, we are here. The
Okay.
internet
I
flood
don't
is
only do
fluctuating a
films.
bit, but we are here.
I also work with agencies.
Sorry, before you go there, let me interrupt you a bit, just to build on something you've said already. You have indicated that it's important to read, it's important to research, but can you give us really a broader picture now? How does one really prepare? If I say I want to go into the role of a production designer, what formal steps should I be considering taking?
Now, the formal step is this. There are those who, I say, have the flair. They are gifted. They are already artists. Okay. So they can express themselves as artists and so on. But in as much as you can express yourself as artists, you also have to be able to express yourself, have interest in literature, have interest in storytelling, be a perfect observer or listener. Look, when I get into a place, people say I look a lot. I say yes, because it is very important for my trade, for my craft. Observation is key. I listen to everything. I listen to the drop of water. I look at chickens when they are going in the evenings and see their attitudes. I look at a madman and look at that madman very, very well. I want to understand this bad man, this person who is mad now, has some form of culture behind him before he became mad. So when he is mad, this is his attitude. I look at family lives. I live in the countryside of Lagos. I live in the, not mainland, I live in Egbeda, so you should know exactly where I live. So I'm immersed with the people. I see, I feel their pulse. And I tell you one thing, if you want to be a production designer, you should feel people's pulse socially. You should be able to say, okay, in the year 2050, I can make a film of Nigeria in 2021. I should be able to tell you how we were running around, the belief around the Ebola, the belief around the coronavirus, and so on. You become a kind of database of history. That apart, you must be curious. I'm sitting here, I've already read this morning about the Chinese efforts in a faraway galaxy, the Mars. I want to know how the architecture of Mars, how if they want people to live there, they say, okay, people should live in cliffs that throws shadows. Why are they throwing these shadows? Why is it important for people to be in a cliff where there is shadows? Because the atmosphere is thin. Therefore, the radiation of the sun is a disaster. So you need to shield yourself. So all these things I need to know. I want to know why some Fulanis are coming back. I want to know why are there clashes. I want to understand why, okay, why is it that Nigerian music has gone viral, has become important? People like Burna Boy, Wizkid are winning, what do they call it? Grammys. They have taken our music to a certain level. Are you getting me? So what does all this mean? I want to understand why is it that when I go to weddings, everybody there is wearing traditional. Nobody's coming on suit or London suits. Why have we had a shift from mentality of, okay, wedding of 70s, where you have everybody coming in the latest, or 80s and so on, coming in the latest London suit? Why is it now that everybody wants to get into the wedding is our traditional dresses? Why is it that you can attend a party, for those of you who are young, you get into clubs and the DJ hits the floor from 6 o'clock to 6 the next day, and it's all Nigerian vibe, and people are enjoying themselves. In our days, it was OJs, you know, all those discos, Tina Turners, Donna Summers, Abbas, and so. But today, come on. So there are reasons. You have to find out this. So I tell you one thing. Being a production designer, anybody can do it. But that anybody should be somebody who has interest in the arts. Observation is very important. Your ears are your wings. Your ears should be your wings. You have to have strong memory. You have to have strong memory. I tell you people, just once, a little bit of it. When we are doing Lions of 76, we had to go and research, look for Nigerian Army uniform of those days. Not many people even understood that we had crepe-lin. That was what the army called crepe-lin. Some brown belts, some brown boots, and complete kind of ammunition that was being used then. We had to get those things. When you are looking at that film, you saw children during the birthday party. In our days, birthday party was a tray of rice. It wasn't served in place or takeaway. It was a tray of rice. Children will gather. Then we will start. At the end of the day, when the thing is getting lower, people will start putting in their pockets and so on. So all these things. So if I didn't sediment all these things in my mind, I will probably not be a successful production designer. 30 years from now, and I am still relevant in the industry, it means that I am making use of database. You have to be a very good observer, active participator in a society that you live. So when you want to be a production designer, you must be somebody who is actively involved in your environment. As Chinua Achebe said, that we must all be able to contribute our story to the global village. When they say the world is a village, you bring your story. That's why things fall apart, formed the story and became popular. That's why Fela could, with broken language and with that his music, contribute so much that the successes of today's Wizkid's and Burna Boy does not depend because of how well they speak the American language, but how well they present and speak the Nigerian language with their music. So if you want to be a good set designer, you should be somebody who is immersed in their culture. You should be somebody who understands the dynamism. You should also be a good artist. You should have an eye. Where you are sitting now, I see you as a professor sitting behind books and so on. So if I want to depict a professor somewhere, I will put him right behind books. But you must pay attention to what is trending and changing. Remember that years back, when we are working for advertising agencies and so on, when you want to advertise the cool product, you have to put somebody in suits, executive and all whatnot. So he has to appear and people say, yes, this is it. But when Mike Zuckerberg came to Nigeria, what happened? This guy came in t-shirts and one rubbish sandal or jeans and so. And all the people who went to the airport to receive him, instead of the art French design suit, had to run home, change in jeans, and met him. I don't know if as production designers, you people should see that. So when we are working, you must be able to understand what the chronological period, what people look like. In October 1st, you could see our policemen, how they looked. You could see the late Sadiq Daba in his pure elements. Production designer, you got to look at what these houses look like, what they were used to, the kind of vehicle. How could you do possibly a film of, you say, okay, 40 years, 20 years later, or 20 years before. 20 years before. That is in retrospect. Then in 1980, you are showing me a prodigy. Does it work? 20 years ago, you're showing me a woman wearing tights in Kaduna or in Kano. Does it work? So these are the things we should pay attention to. We should even pay attention to the architecture of the building. Today, now, you see the craze. Every house, when you build one room, you put 8 pillars in front. What for? It is the, yeah, you understand? So you have to know the trend of architecture of the millennium architecture with that of the 80s. We know what it looked like. So when you want to be a production designer, you have to be very observant. You have to research. You have to know exactly what is and what is not. Period. But above all, you've got to be somebody who reads. It does not say you have to read about arts alone. In fact, I know about agriculture as I'm here. I know about medicine as I'm here. I know about space engineering. I can tell you things that happen in NASA. Do you understand me? I know about a lot of things. You have to be completely rich. You have to read too much. I repeat, read too much. You have to understand politics. You have to understand, be an apostle of Jacques Cousteau. Cousteau is the guy who undertakes the famous dives, deep sea dives. You have to understand about climatic change. By the way, when we talk about this climatic change, people are talking, okay, conserving the, what they call it, conserving nature and so on. When I shot our film with Tike Tunde Ayinde Kelani, who, by the way, I still feel very sad that that guy has not been given any national honor. No MFR, no MB, or all those things they give. They should have given him. When we did Aruba, you know what Aruba means? Aruba was simply all those things they carried to go and feed the fishes in the river. Because these people, they take fish from the water. So you have to fish, give those fishes. And when our people have the so-called evil forest, which Christianity has made us believe that, oh, evil forest, devil. In fact, they have to cast and bind, and in most places, they go and level the evil forest in the name of civilization. What were the evil forests? Who are the people who entered the evil forest? Our dear so-called native doctors, who I don't call them native, they are, yes, but they are herbalists, intelligent, because they know that inside that place, they have plants that are so delicate that can heal so many things. So they enter there and they come out, they rub something and give you, and you get healed. And they tell you, don't enter. If you enter, you have to see devils with 16 heads, devils that consume you and so on. No, that was simply a way of stopping people from going in there, farming and destroying the very rare vegetation that are there. So we are talking of climatic change. People say, okay, they are somebody, Thunberg, the little girl, Thunberg, something Thunberg, the little girl, everybody, climatic change. We in Africa, we know about climatic change and we know about how to conserve our things. So you have to understand this. That is being a production designer.
Sorry, now, from much of what you said, in that case, if one were to advise a young person who wants to go into this field, it'll be, well, in the first place, study a course in the humanities. Would I be correct to say that?
Yes.
And of course, be a wide reader. Well, that applies to everybody, really.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Now, let me ask this other question here.
Yeah.
Now, what will be the various stages? Because it's one thing to say, yes, you're preparing for the job in general, but now when you have to deal with a particular project, the production designer gets involved in the project from the very beginning. Yes. Can you take us through the process of your work? What do you do? The various stages of pre-production, production, and post-production.
Okay, I can tell you how it happens. Let me give you, for instance, if I have to work with Ekunle Afolayan, of whom I have done most of his films. When we're doing figurine, for instance, how did we do? What did we do? First, I discussed the story with him. As a director, he will call me as production designer, and two of us will dissect that story. As it's coming from the writer, we are looking at it. So this is possible. This is the way our people think about it, and so on. Immediately after discussing the whole story, we now decide that we are going to go to the locations as production designer, director. And going to this location, production designer, director, and the DOP, that's the cinematographer, we all go there. Then I begin to tell Kunle, okay, this is it. So this is how the house will look like. This is what the location will look like. This is the way, because the production designer is the eyes of the film. What people eventually see is the production designers or the art directors call. And what is more, we have to sketch all these things. Sketch everything. The road that they will pass, the places that, okay, let's imagine where they found the Araro Mire, which is the statue itself. We sketched it. There was no house there, it was a farm. What is it that makes the life of Ramsey so that it makes him so weak, and Kunle in that case so strong, and it makes, we decided that we're going to put a lot of dust in that thing. So when they were picking it, you could see Ramsey, who was a little bit asthmatic and so on. So when we are watching, you are completely taken aback. When we got to the house where they were having those Aaron Ramirez, we actually decided that for you, fear comes with a little bit of some darkness. So you can see that most of those buildings weren't very bright colors. It was on purpose. So these are what the production designer does. Before even we shoot, we have to go and select all these things. When we now finish selecting, looking at the location and okaying it, what do? We now get all the other part of the art departments run, which is construction department, people who will build. We will discuss with the costume what we want it to look like, how it's going to look like, how the costume helps to enhance the story. Then we discuss with the makeup people. You understand? As a production designer, what I see myself is the head of the art department. It doesn't mean, what it means is this, that I'm in charge of makeup, costume, animal handling, construction departments. I oversee it. It's a teamwork. Seeing it is making sure that what the makeup person is doing is not running contrary to what the production designer is doing. What the costumier is doing is not, she's not dancing a separate dance. And I tell you, once you see a film where the costume is doing his own, makeup is doing his own, production designer is doing his own, you will know. You understand? Now, as production designers, what I also do is that when I build up my environment, my sets, I will have to call a DP, like Inka Edwards, one of our greatest, by the way. He's won the British equivalent of Oscar. And he's involved right now in the making of the filming of Belfast. It's a film due to be released in November. It was shot all in England, but he was the second cameraman, which is good for our industry. As by the way, I'll call Yinka and show him, and call the director and ask the director, what is your dream? Because as a production designer, if you cannot interpret the dream of the director, it's a no-show. I am only a vehicle to bring out, to deliver the dream of that director. And I will also advise. So these are all the things we do. Once we get that done, the director clears it. The production, the DP tells you, okay, this set, I want it this high, I want it this color because I want to do my grading this way. I want this, I want that. You put that together, it becomes a proper teamwork. And that's when the production design aspect becomes incredible. So you must be able to understand their DP. You must be able to know the story. That's it. It's not rocket science, but it is difficult to be able to coordinate all this. It comes with years of experience. Don't expect that, yeah, okay, I want to be a production designer, I want to do all this. No. As a production designer, there is one key ingredient. You know what the key ingredient is? You must make mistakes, but you must be able to overcome. Get up and dust it off and say, come on. And you go ahead. Do you understand me? I hope anybody listening, they do understand. Mistakes, you have to make mistakes. You have to learn. There is no one-time production designer and you come out 100%. No, Pat Nebo has gone through 30 years of furnace. I tell you one thing. Let me tell you people one thing. When I was working for an agency, Oracle, to be precise, we had to put up an AO. Somewhere for Lagos, what do they call that? Crossover. AO, 70 feet. 70 feet high, right in the beach with all those currents. And you know the worst thing, I had to make it in crates. When we are talking about it in the meetings and so on, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I've never done it before. Nobody has done it before. But I said yes, that it can be done. That means that I wasn't afraid. And I was ready to give it everything. We gave it everything. And for those of you who drove around that area, you would have seen that famous, if you Google it now, AO, 70 feet in crate, Lagos crossover. You will see it, it will pop up. After the AO, we did the three wise men. You know the three wise men when you are coming into Lagos. We also used crate to do it, 70 feet, and we're able to do it. Don't ask me what it took. It took everything. But we were determined to do it. So power of imagination is one. As a production designer, you must be able to try to dominate any environment. You understand? You must be able to dominate it. You must be able to go extra mile to research just to make sure that the film is good. So we have, in some of our films, we took extreme risk, like Milkmaid. I don't know if most of you knew, but a lot of people, a lot of our team people were arrested. They were put into cell. An entire film, entire set that we built for 3 months, the army came and said that this is, in fact, they saw it and said this is a training camp. Because we have measured artillery and everything. And they ordered us to level it. The army were there with their trucks, with their public relations department. We demolished everything. But we now went into Taraba State and we started again. And that film made it to the Oscars, almost. That's the Milkmaid. Most people didn't know the story behind. So I do a lot of things. I'm a production designer in film. I work with agencies. You understand? We do a hell lot of things. So as a production designer, actually, it's important. You should understand how they manage metal, how they manage wood, carpentry, how they sew clothes, how they do ordinary furniture, and so on. Because most of the time, you might not have all these things readily available. And I'll tell you one thing also. It's important for you production designers to know that there is no single house that you enter that was built for your film. You have to turn it to your film. Most houses in Nigeria are white, and white are the worst colors for our film. Do you understand me? So as a production designer, when you get into an environment, you begin to dominate it. Most of our chairs that we have in houses, they buy them from Saudi with a lot of lavished dollars. But when you sit down on it, you are like this. It does not bring you up like the way I'm sitting. You are not sitting smart. You have to look at that. Production designers No, they don't only work in films, they work in television stations. I want to seize this opportunity to tell you people that the first broadcast of channels, TV, I built the set. Go look at it today and compare with what we have today. The first broadcast of AIT, Ray Power, TV, I was the one that built the sets for them. So we are then doing it. So as a young person, there is always a lot of things you can do. Don't get discouraged. But it's important to know that you start with your discussing the script with the director. You must go be able to see the place you want to work before you shoot. It's important. If you have the luxury, it's important to see it before you shoot. Discuss it with your DP, the director. Then gather your teams. Make sure that even if you are working with more matured costumiers and makeup person, call them, rub mind with them, make sure that what they are working is in synchrony or in harmony or works with what you are doing. It is important. So
it sounds to me from what you've said that a very important skill that the production designer has to cultivate as well is the ability to manage people.
yes,
You need to be able to,
yes,
well,
it is
to
very important
empathize.
because we are what we call in films, they say below the line job. Production designing is below the line job. We are not on the elegant side of it. In fact, in most cases, you are blamed.
Right.
Yes, we are blamed. People say, set is not ready. And so, oh, no, they called me on set. And this, can you imagine a house this beautiful? They called me on set and they said they are still doing something. Yes, we are still doing something because that house was not meant for that story. As a production designer, you must insist, that is if you know your director very well and you know your DP very well, that the house fits the story. That the house is owned by the Dangote does not mean that it fits the story.
Right.
An $1 house cannot fit the story if I'm talking about the killing of Major General Aguiyi. It does not fit it. I want to tell the story of the Yoruba race. Even up to this moment, I have not found a single palace, one single palace, that when the monarch sits in, you can say this has to do a lot with Yorubas. I don't want to go to Igbos because I know that the Igbos are Republicans. The palaces can be anything there, but Yorubas have the culture. But I'm telling you that ne Oniru, neither the Oni. I've not seen anyone that I look at and I'll tell you that, oh man, this is Yoruba. Those buildings, they don't look like even Windsor Castle, but they don't look like, definitely they are not Yoruba. So when we are going to work on any other film, we will know exactly as a production designer what direction we are going. You have to research. We have our architectures. Nigeria has an architect. We have a spirit. So that's it. I throw it to you, upcoming ones and so on. You are the future of the industry. And don't say that you can't do it. You can do more than me. My own is just to give you, what do they call it? A guide. That's my work at this point. So we don't have a Yoruba palace around, and we must make it in your films. In whatever endeavor you do, start researching it now. That's what I'm giving to you guys. You can ask me your own questions later. So,
Okay. On the issue of questions, I have one here from Tony. And he says, very specific films based on historical incidents always receive special scrutiny, especially on the issue of authenticity. Kindly speak to us about the blues and reds of the police guard in October 1.
Good. Yes, the blues and reds of the, yes. For us to do October 1, we went to the Nigerian police. Honestly, the Nigerian police didn't have anything. we had to refer to BBC. BBC. That's where we got things. We got references. Then we went to Deola Sego. I thank that lady, Deola Sego. She's a big name in fashion. She has the wherewithal. She made those uniforms. Those uniforms you saw, she made them. So we were looking at photographs and we were making the uniforms. You understand? We looked at the ceremonial, because you had the ceremonial aspect of it, and then you have the average number. For us to be able to shoot that, myself and Kunle Afolayan, we had to get into College of Agriculture in Ondo State to be able to locate the buildings where we had the police stations and all whatnot. You understand? We had to go that far. So whenever, I think the success of that film was also based on the nearness our research carried us. Remember that we are operating not under the Hollywood budget, but on a Nigerian budget. But we were able to make some difference. And that was the novelty that people felt in that film. We went as far as getting into Lord Lugar's office. I want you people to know that the office where the white people were, where Mrs. Ransom Kuti came in, was actually Lord Lugar's office. We had to redress that office, get it as close as possible to what it was then. We even had to put in the movements of Mrs. Ransom Kuti. That was the movement. We saw just a clip of it in some of her tours in UK, and we added that. We had to add that. So in making up the authenticity of films, you go through these minute details. That was it. Nothing more, nothing less. But we felt, myself and Kunle Afolayan and Yinka Edwards, the triumvirate, we thought that we could push that far at that point in time in the Nigerian film industry. What we're saying is that this thing can be raised to a level. Right. Yes, that's it. Same thing that happened in...
I'm sorry, go ahead, please. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the same thing that happened in 76. We went as far as getting not very close, getting to the house that Yakubu Gowon stayed in Ibadan before he was called to Lagos to take over. We saw where the killing took place and all what. Stories has to be told in this country. But first and foremost, we have to prepare ourselves mentally. So as a production designer, it's important. Details are important. Details are important. The downfall conductor of today is not the downfall conductor of Bolikaja. Dressing and so on. You should know all these things. Details are very important. How do you give me an area boy and you say he's the chief area boy and so on and so forth? And when you look at him, his body is so smooth, so manicured. Area boys have scars to tell you where they are coming from. As a kid, he could have been fighting and fighting, one teeth losing and marks and so on. This is what we need. So when you look at that image, it gives you the authenticity of what we are describing. So details, we try. I try as much as possible. Our team try as much as possible to get the details. And I hope this answers a little bit of your questions. We might not be able to get it 100%, but then we try.
Right. It does answer the question. Thank you very much. Now, you said something about that one of the requirements for the position has to be the readiness to make mistakes. But then you've also mentioned that, at least here in the Nigerian film industry, we tend to work with rather limited budgets.
Yes.
Do these mistakes not sometimes end up being too expensive? If one says, well, let me be available, let me be ready to make mistakes. But
Yes.
doesn't that challenge also come in that sometimes those mistakes could be expensive?
Well, I tell you one thing. For the period in which the mistakes are made, because at times you might be even working with everybody that is red horn. You understand? Let me give you an example. We didn't have budgets for certain things in October 1st. We had to use cartons to produce those caps.
Right.
And it looks, if you're not careful, you think it's the real thing. You understand? Some of the things that you saw there were actually not, they are picked from nothing. I tell you one thing. Okay, there's one film I was doing with Omoni Obole. I think it wasn't Okafor's Law. I can't remember. But we ran into a situation whereby we needed meat, bush meat from a hunter. We didn't have the money. We ran out of budget. And we needed it there. As a production designer, what did I do? I brought a piece of carton, cut immediately the shape of the meat and stuff like that. I'm sure I'm speaking to production designer. Used a little bit of, can I remember? It was I asked them to give me amala and so on. Also, we dusted it on that thing. I started putting things, and before you know it, by the time we dropped it down, it looked like a piece of fresh meat. So you have to be creative when it comes to that. You understand me? There is one film we did because twins of the
rainforest.
Of the rainforest with Olu Jacob and Joke Silva acting. That vehicle you saw in the 30s, that was a vehicle of the 30s. There was nothing like that. We made it. We made it up. Planks and all whatnot. But by the time we put it there and people were putting loads, it looked exactly like it. And we had that fear. We didn't have the budget. We then did the one that with Sadiq Daba and Yomila Inka called God Almighty. Sadiq had HIV, or Yomila Inka had, one of them had, they all had HIV. They were HIV patients. But they had to exercise their franchise, which is voting. That film was directed by Mahmoud Ali Borogo, making up the bodies for HIVs and stuff like that. We didn't have all the latex and all the things that makeup artists had to do, but we had to do it. We came up with creativity and it was done. So these are things that are beautiful. And then another thing I believe in is this, that even as a production designer, I always learn. Sometimes when I'm working, there used to be a guy, Isiaka, they call him, Junior. I call him Junior. He doesn't even speak English very well. But he's one of my teams. And this guy will call me and say, okay, this is how this thing is. I say, is that? But if you do it like this, you understand me? You have to have thought ears. You must listen to people. As a leader, you don't always see it as production designer, but when you relax with your boss, when they tell you things and you see, and honestly, they are the ones that tell me, okay, this area, this is how it should be, and chop cupboards, or this and that. Especially the digital generations, they know a lot of things. I always do work as a production designer, having in mind one thing, which is important. You see that Nigerian audience, people, this audience are sophisticated. We shouldn't take them. We shouldn't joke with them. They know what they want. The only thing is that what they want, most of the time we're not able to give it to them. But thank God these days, a lot of effort is being made within the film industry. And Nollywood, or whatever I call it, the Nigerian film industry, is really trying. But I also tell you one thing. We must be careful about what we put out there. I went to work for an agency. It wasn't even a film. They brought in some people from Rwanda. I can't remember, one of those Eastern African countries. The girl felt so attached. He loved what I was doing as the set person on this event. But anytime I would talk to him, he will grab one of his, you follow, is it Uganda or Rwanda? He will grab the boy and hold the boy tight. So I now ask him, I said, this boy, is he your husband? He said, no. Who is he to you? Why is it that anytime I ask you a question, you first go and run and hold him? He said, he will tell me later. When the show was over, you know what he told me? That most Nigerian films that they watch in their faraway East Africa has a lot of juju in it. Somebody will talk to somebody and the person will fall in love with the person. She was afraid that if she had come to me alone to ask questions, she might finish up staying in Nigeria and not go home. What does that tell you?
But yeah.
It tells you of mindsets, how people take the colonization that our film industry has brought to them. So they take us, that is, anything you do as a production designer, please be very, very careful and do it to the best of your knowledge, because you do not know how it's going to be received at the other end. It's important. It is important.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Now, to move to, well, they said to put your money where your mouth is. Let me take a question from Michael, who's concerned, who would like to know really issues of cost. He says, I'm curious to know your pricing for a project. Do you charge from pre-production through production separately, or you charge for a project as a whole?
Yeah. Well, Michael, when we are starting, I had the usual zeal to work. We simply wanted to work. We didn't even mind. We didn't give a damn for it. We will simply ask you, how much do you have? Because we wanted to prove a point. And we wanted to learn on the job. And we were successful in some of the things we are doing there. So we asked the person, okay, the person said, okay, all I have is 2,000 naira. I said, okay, let's see what we can do with 2,000 naira. But as responsibilities started building, we will have to ask you that. Sure, I will ask you, tell me the story. You tell me the story. Then I will cost it for you. In terms of pre-production, because pre-production is the success of every film depends on the pre-production. As a production designer, if you have the time to do your prep of pre-production very, very well, that means that you have discussed everything, you have even done some building and so on and so forth. The turnarounds on set is easy because people will simply be shooting from one set to the other. You understand me? So we charge for those time that people are sleeping in their houses and the art department or construction team are roughing it out. Then we charge also for being on set with you. That's it. So you have to do those charges like that. So you put all of them together. And what I do is that I will always make sure that I detail to you that even when we're on set, there are some floats that must be made available. Because if you get down to shooting machine and you need a welder instantly there, that welder is not part of the people sleeping in the hotel. So you have to pay for that welder. So you must have a float for such things. And then most of the time, production designers, I carry loads. I ask for a special truck for loads. I also ask for a truck to carry the construction or art department team. I also make sure that I have what I call advanced team, because I'm here shooting and I need to go to point B to shoot later. We need to have people there turning that place around and making it, what do they call it? Making it fit, that is making it, getting the place ready so that the very moment they are finishing, yeah, and they are coming there, we are not going to start building sets from scratch. And I want to tell you one thing. People's houses are not meant for filming. I don't do that. Most houses in Nigeria, if you want to say you are rich in Nigeria, you have to paint your house white. All the chairs are white. Sometimes they don't fit in. So when you get into those places, you must have your flats. Dummy flats that when you put them on the wall and they sit together with the window, you can now paint and paint to suit your story and what the director wants. So that when you finish, you remove everything, they have everything the way it is. So when I'm charging, I charge for the period before the shoot starts. That's 1 month that we are working outside, I charge. I'll charge you for the month that everybody is also working. That is it. But it's important to always have a clear understanding with the director. Because as your production designer, the buck stops with the director and the producers. These are the people who bring the money. But I'll tell you one thing. Do you know what makes Pat Nebo tick today? Let me share the secret with you because it might be useful when you are climbing. If you give me 100%, if you give me 1 million for your set, I will use 750,000 to do your set. That's why I'm still in the business, because people look at it and they will see something different. They will feel that you work for them. But if they give you 1 million to do a set and you quickly use 800,000 to go and buy your jalop and use 200 to do sets, you will get away with it. You can get away with it next time. But with the trend of things, with the Netflix people coming in, with foreigners coming in, you are digging your own grave. They will look at your job and they will know that your job has a precedent. It's always poor job. Big money, poor job. Remember, what we do today is for those who will come into the industry tomorrow. Just the way you people are going to come into the industry, and those of us who've been there, if we didn't prepare the grounds, we won't be at this level. So it's important for you, production designers, to think ahead. Have one thing always in our minds, that we are Nigerians. Project Nigeria proudly in whatever you do. It's important.
Fantastic, thank you. Then Usman is asking if you can take us through the production design journey of 76.
Production design journey started 3 months before the actual shoot, which is Oju. We have gone to Ibadan. We have gone to start sourcing, even those citrons you saw. We had 3 months to go in there to start sourcing and to start locating the places we wanted to use. The kind of guns we wanted to use. And some 3 months before that, 3 months that we were on location before we shot, we've been discussing the scripts and looking at the locations. That means that the prep was, if you put everything together, was 6 months. Then we started shooting. For us to, for every bit of the distance we shot, we got the vehicles. Those little vehicles you people saw were actually non-functional. We had to make them function so that we can use them for shoots. The Land Rover was the Land Rover of the period. You could see the jerry can, even up to the detail of the jerry can that guy was having. That is a DJT, or what they call it, boy. The guy that was Ramsey's assistant, riding the bicycle and coming to put those water in Ramsey's vehicle. You could see a 404 on that film. You understand every detail. And I will tell you also one thing. You probably would have seen me acting 76. I came in there because the army insisted that everybody who will act in 76 had to undertake military training. And we had 1 month of military training to learn how to salute, to learn all, you understand? Both Chidi, Ramsey, all of us, 7 o'clock, parade ground, till 3 o'clock in the evening, non-stop, for 1 month. 247. You know what that means? So the guy that came, that would have taken my pass, said, I came to ask not to do military destiny, and he wouldn't do it. That was how I came in there. You could see how authentic the thing was. The actors felt that they were soldiers. So it wasn't, the saluting was perfect. Everything was perfect because we had to do that even before they entered set. Do you understand me? So we had to do all those. These are our preps. Then the period of shooting. I think we did close to 4 months. That is an Izuo Ojukwu for you. Director Izuo Ojukwu for you. Check his precedents. So when you work with such people who have interest in stories, in chronicling events, that's what it takes. So films differ. We went through all those houses, military houses, the houses where they used, what the OC's house used to look like. Even to the point of the execution, we constructed a prototype of the Black Maria of that period. So when that thing was coming, we were mixing both footage and actual. People never, you couldn't tell what was happening. That is why that film came out the way it came out. And it won awards. So, research, paying attention to detail. Research, paying attention to detail. Patience and hard work has results. If one really wants to do things. I hope that answers Mohammed's question.
Yes, I do believe it does. Now, from all that you've said so far, you must have faced challenges along the way in all these different projects that you've worked on. What kind of challenges have you encountered?
Good. One of the biggest challenges we encounter as production designer is that our educational system, from primary to university level, does not encourage conservation of any type. If you go to Nigerians' houses and you are looking for a wall clock, you can't find. You look for some things that are old as 10 years ago, you cannot find. Because our culture means that we are consumers. Nigerians leverage. Nigerians like, I have 2010 model. I have 2020 model. In fact, I have 2015 model. We don't care about the past. That is a big challenge. It's a very big challenge. If I want to do anything on Shango, now, I'll have to go crazy because I'll have to recreate everything. If I have to do anything about 10 years ago, I have to recreate everything because you find it difficult to source things. When we shot Oleku, there's a film called Oleku by Oleku at University of Ibadan. We virtually had to recreate everything and bring them to life, including the refectories, the hostels. So there are not, we suffer from things that people don't document. So the production designer is always, in fact, he will have to recreate almost all the things. And most of the time, he doesn't even have the money to do it. So they just patch anything. That's the challenge on its own. But the way out of this challenge is being creative. in a bush where there was no houses. We put up a house in figuring. The way we did it, when you look at it, you think they were inside houses. They were not inside houses. Those things were set, created for that purpose. Are you getting me? We didn't have float bags and so on, but Kunle Afolayan dived inside the water himself. If you saw the making, he was the one carrying the late professor. Floating, that dead body floating was him, he was under it. So we had to, you simply have to be very creative. Most of the jobs I've done, we had to be creative. When we shot, what was it? Half of the Yellow Sun, the same thing. The refugee camps, I did it. We have to be very creative about it. We did it actually inside Tinapa. And most of the time also, we have to encourage people to look outside Lagos. Because sometimes you can find good locations outside where you are filming or where you intend to shoot. But all these things are finance driven. Another challenge we face is that even the people we are working with in production in their department do not understand issues. If the makeup is a problem, it is a problem for the for the production designer. If the costume has problem, it's the problem for the art director or production designer, because you are supposed to have an idea of what all these things will be. There are no proper schools that teach film in Nigeria. We have some film schools, but who are these professors? Who are these people teaching these children? How many films have they produced? When was the last time they went on location? I went to Jos, practically begging for schools to allow students to come out and be part of the film we wanted to shoot. And the gentleman then told me that they have curriculum, that they are about facing exam that they will finish and they will come out to work with us in this field. What could be more? Which kind of library will be more than having students be part of a complete production from beginning to the end? That is a production that is happening less than half a mile within that school. So mindsets, everything is not certificates. Being there matters. So when you have to be a production designer with people who are ill-equipped, who are not prepared, who in some cases sometimes are even honestly, not for their own fault, ignorance of events and how things should be, what do you do? We do not teach classical music in Nigeria. We do not teach classical arts. We do not teach a sense of perception for arts. Are you getting me? These children are just recreating themselves. So definitely there will be a problem. One has to guide them through. And we have to encourage them to fill in where their professors fail. Everything is not handouts. Let's talk about it. You understand me? Most of them, some people we even have in the film are not yet art students. Some of them are geography students. Some studied catering. Some are English students, and they want to be production designer. We simply have to have patience. So all these things are part of challenges. And then sometimes you have producers who want to do a film, they have the money, but they don't have the idea. If you want to tell no matter how good you are as a production designer, if you have a cinematographer that does not understand cinema, that is not well trained, your work is gone. Because a set comes out because of the light. A set is so beautiful because of how it's lit and how it's filmed. So challenges, in fact, full everywhere. But we will have to navigate these challenges, and we will have to build ourselves and develop. That's it.
Great, thank you very much. Well, our time is just about up, but I have one last question here from Tony. who says Christians bristled a bit about the use of the crucifix in October 1. Could you speak to the inscription of crucifixes on victims' chests in that film? Who makes the decision about what the crucifix should look like in such a film? If I may just tag on something else to that question. You have mentioned that the production designer has to be the interpreter of the director's vision, but
Yes.
Is there room for the production designer to also have his or her own visual style?
Yeah, there is room if you have an experienced director, and if you have a production designer who has come that way, who can defend, who can convince. We used crucifix, yes. If you look at October 1st very well, we oscillated between the Catholic and the Protestants. We had one message. The message we were trying to pass was that of abuse. It happened. Even though it was a taboo, it was an attempt to hit at a taboo. We know that it existed. We don't want our people to read it from foreign media, because when they read it from foreign media, their own has multi-colorations. But what did we do? We let our people see it from our own side, and that it was done by a missionary, not our own missionary. That missionary was a foreign missionary. You saw it. So for me, talking about that with the crucifix it was part of the story. But people should look beyond that. That wasn't even the message. The message then was that even with the whole load of the Oyibo investigators, they could not crack that matter. Even when they could crack it, they were still shielding the victim because he belongs to a powerful family. But it took our own Danladi Waziri, acted by Sadiq Daba, to crack the case. The message is not all about those things. The message is that a Nigerian police officer was able to crack a case that the so-called Scotland Yard in Nigeria couldn't, or they were hesitant to do. But we had the brave Nigerian police officer. Such things is still very, very, it happens today. There are crack Nigerian police officers. And when Nigerians want to work, they work. That was the message. Forget about the crucifix, all of those things were ingredients. Okay, it happened, or it didn't. You understand me? But that was the message. Did you see how powerful it was when that scout guy came, brought down the picture of the Queen, and put up our own flag, coat of arms and flag, and we played that national anthem. That is the original, not this one. It brought goose pimple to people. So what we are trying to do, what we try to do in that film is to tell people that Nigeria is a great country. Every other thing that happens in other countries happens here. Fine, you had religious people who did in all spheres. They all did that kind of thing, but we had our way. The matter was cracked and solved by Nigeria. That was the message. And that's what I want you people to take away from that. And as a production designer, I did my very best for us to maintain that delicate balance.
Okay, thank you. Our time really is up, but I have here a question from Alex.
Yeah.
Who, well, if you don't mind, I will just put it forward to you. Alex says, thank you, Pat, for this insightful conversation. Yeah. In recent years, there has been a move towards purpose-built production facilities in Nigeria, especially in television, with studios like Mnet and Ultima providing controlled shooting environment. Yeah. There have also been various announcements regarding the founding of film villages. Do you see a move in Nollywood towards studio shooting?
Regarding what? Repeat the question. Regarding the...
There have also been various announcements regarding the founding of film villages.
Yes.
Do you see a move in Nollywood towards studio shooting as desirable or likely?
Well, I want to answer that question this way. First and foremost, I want to answer that question this way. I must say that studios, we had always had studios. Even before this Mnet came, there were NTA studios, LTV studios, Solar production studios. Solar was an independent production. Remi Ogunpito and Boyega Adeleja. Then, you remember the, what do they call it? One famous SDP campaign. SDP, action, Abiola, action. All those things were produced. Tina Mbadiwe, the late Tina Mbadiwe, one crazy musician then. Remember that her video was produced in a studio then. Sola did all those things. But right now, okay. MT, what they call them, Mnet and Co, they've come up, they build their own private studio, and a lot of people have started film villages. Film villages, when they say film village, it's a hell lot. It's a good thing. Think of Z World. Think of the amount of money Z World is bringing to Indian film industry. Think of the displacement Z World. Practically, I will say that 40% of Nigerian women watch Z World. Somebody will say that 40% is mine. If they're not watching Z World, they're on the other, what do they call that other one? From South America somewhere. So we had intentions to do film villages, but most of those film villages were politically motivated. At the end of the day, people who do this film go to do these film villages. I have not seen anyone that has actually happened. Money has been budgeted for it. And this question of changing people all the time, they change from census board, they change from, in fact, we don't understand. There are no, I can tell you there's no film village. It would be a very beautiful thing to do. Just one film village would have solved a lot of problems. And when you say you want to have a film village, as you want to have a studio, we should have railway inside it. We should have roads inside it. We should have mega buildings inside it. We should have malls inside it. A lot of things happens in this film village. Which governor, which of the governors really understands what this thing is all about? Who are the people who are working with these people? After cool 15 years of talking of film villages, and there is nothing to prove, doesn't that tell you something? It's a very good idea. We should actually have one, but we don't have.
Let me thank you all very much for your participation. Thank you for joining us today. The recording of this session will be put up on the YouTube channel for those who might want to take a second look or direct others' attention to it. So we'll put it all up there, along with the other sessions that we've had, which are also on our YouTube channel. So thank you very much for being with us. And we look forward to the next session. We have another one coming up this month, which promises to be also another very interesting guest that we'll have then. We will notify you duly. Thank you once again, and do have a very good day ahead. All the best.